So thank you guys for joining us. It is Thursday at 1 p.m. If you're watching the recording, then it's not Thursday at 1 p.m. But thank you for joining us. We have Ashley Knowles and James Mars here today. We're going to talk about Purple Team Foundations. And yeah, guys, take it away.
All right. James is manning the slides, so
Yes, I had to quickly get tabbed back into the slides instead of Discord. So,
okay.
alrighty. So, yep, I'm James, this is Ashley, and this is what we're going to talk about today. Kind
Yes, it is. We have to switch to our more serious face to give a second to
exactly.
like dial it back in.
Yep.
Um, so anyway, we're going to talk about Purple Team Basics. What is it? How you do it. We're going to talk about, the blue side of things. We're going to talk about frameworks. We're going to talk about the phases of planning during the engagement, attack after the engagement, what to do when your alerts don't alert, spoiler alert, panic a little bit. And we're going to talk about, advocating for purple teams, how to ask your management to conduct a purple team assessment, some automation, and then we're going to go through some questions. So about us, we apparently spent all of our energy on the rest of the slides, and so this is our
Yeah.
about us page. Again, my name is Ashley Knowles. I have been in BHS for a little under 4 years now. I am a pen tester. I do quality assurance with us, technical reviews. I do a little dabbling on the team lead side of things, documentation, kind of a little bit of everything. Network pen testing is my specialty. And I have been in the cybersecurity space for, gosh, how old am I? 13 years now. So that is a little bit about me. I have a English Mastiff. He is wonderful. His name is Waffles. I have a couple of children. They are also wonderful. And James.
Yeah, so James Mars, I've been with BHIS full time for 5 years now. Started out as systems administration, and then we spun up the SOC, and then I went and helped out in that for a couple years, and now recently, last year sometime, I forget when, started pen
Mhm.
testing, doing network pen tests, and having a great time. Honestly, it's a blast. I really, really enjoy that kind of work. I also really enjoy like finding stuff and explaining to customers, here's why you should care about this. Here's what you should fix. Here's some of the risks from not fixing it. Really, really great stuff and having a great time doing
Yeah.
it. So,
Yeah, and kind of like the history behind this came from James and I working together. He used to work in the blue side of things, and I came in from the red side of the things, trying to do some adversarial testing for our SOC customers, testing our alerts, making sure things were alerting correctly, fixing things when they weren't alerting correctly. And we were like, we should make this a webinar. So here we are.
yeah.
All
Okay.
right. Purple teaming. What is it? So, I mean, I think everyone knows color theory, right? When you combine red and blue, you get purple. So purple teaming is, the iterative collaboration process of checking and improving cybersecurity measures through realistic and prioritized adversary emulation. I grabbed this lovely little picture. I don't know, graph maybe. It looks like it was a Venn diagram at one point and just got turned into this. But it basically goes through the life cycle of a purple team assessment. So you start off with your planning, you're going to look at, cyber threat intelligence, you're going to analyze the threats specific towards your business and execute on those, see how they're able to, actually fire in your environment. If your alerts get alerted on, and then, look through your lessons learned. So the whole prioritization and the benefits of purple team assessments is to ID misconfigurations and identify coverage gaps in your existing infrastructure. You want to improve ability to detect attacks and breakout time. You want to raise awareness about human vulnerabilities, which could further compromise, your security, and build skills and maturity in a quote safe and low risk environment. Ideally, in a perfect world, a purple team assessment would not just include red and blue, it would also include your devs, it would include system admins, so that everyone can benefit from the exercise. They can see, oh no, this is how far an attacker can actually get. And also, your devs can see why secure code matters. So, the whole goal and purpose of a purple team assessment is to simulate those real world attacks and identify vulnerabilities while improving, your security, your response capabilities, your detections, and identifying any gaps that may exist in logging, tools, processes, and procedures. So your focus really should be kind of on that blue side, understanding the attack chain and improving security capabilities relative to what the threats are to your environment. And then it also provides, like I said, hands-on experience, enhancing team skills, collaboration between the teams. I know that, from my perspective, back working in internal side of things, there always seems to be like this wall, right, in between red and blue, and then your dev people and your system admins. And that wall is kind of hard to get over, and it's hard to bridge that gap, right, between those teams and have collaboration where people aren't just pointing fingers at each other. And so the idea is that purple teaming will help, bridge that gap. It'll show everyone why threat detection is important, why, testing for these things is important, why fixing this stuff is important, why, we're all on the same side at the end of the day. So that is really what a purple team assessment should be like. Next slide, James.
Sure thing. So talking about the blue side of things, just real briefly, so what is the blue team? Ashley mentioned a few different jobs and roles that could really be considered the blue team, right? And so the idea of the blue team is you defend, detect, build, really anybody who is not trying to destroy, break in, pillage, plunder. It can include help desks, sysadmins, network analysts, HOC analysts, NOC analysts. All of the above could be considered a member of the blue team. And what's great about that is when you have multiple blue team members with different backgrounds, different perspectives, and you bring all those in for a purple team, you can really kind of get down into the nitty gritty of, all right, so this particular attack affected this side. I say my IT help desk got phished. Okay, so those guys should probably be included in the purple team to see like, all right, here's what this actually looks like. Here's how this affects us. Here's where we can go from in lessons learned. Maybe they were able to pivot into your developer team from the IT help desk. They got a credential reset. All right, so now what does that look like with your developers? Are they doing secure code practices? Are they locking stuff down to make sure, least privilege in the applications they're touching and developing? So it really is a great opportunity to include a whole bunch of different perspectives in a purple team assessment, and not just everybody looking at one guy like, all right, you're the representative from the blue team, you defend everything, figure out why everything is working or not working, write the alerts, etc. All the onus is on that one person and maybe one team. Whereas if you collaborate, on the quote unquote blue side, you can get a much better perspective and coverage of things you might not have really considered initially. And really, when you think about who should be included in a purple team assessment, there is some truth in the fact that like too many cooks in the kitchen can spoil the soup, but just ask yourself what makes the most sense for our organization and is realistic. Obviously, if we have, say, if you're a small shop, maybe it does make sense to have everybody, all the blue-sided 3 or 4 IT help desk involved. Or if you're a larger organization, okay, we can't have every team lead from every developer team involved in this. But so there's kind of some balance there as to what makes sense. But really, purple teams can be an excellent training opportunity for folks who are newer to the industry or who have less experience with IT and the blue side of things. So Personally, I would advocate to include a few of those folks just to help build experience and confidence when dealing with real world scenarios. So now we'll go on to the Purple Team Framework.
Yeah. So there's a couple of different frameworks out there already that are designed to guide you through this process, right? As an organization. They're put on by organizations like this one, for example, PTEF is put on by Scythe. I don't even know how to say it. But one of those two. And it's really, really helpful because it walks you through, the purple team exercise. It walks you through how to detect what TTP you're going to be testing, and then how to analyze and organize, the exercise itself. And then do the emulation and then look at the results and build the detects if nothing worked, in the blue side of the house. If no alerts were generated, how do you build those detects? So the Purple Team exercise framework is really awesome. I think that it's worth mentioning, obviously, because again, one, it's open source, yeah, and you have the ability to efficiently test, measure, and improve your organization's resilience to cyber attacks that are out there. And it really focuses on, fostering that collaboration between your organization, including not only like the people, but like processes and technologies that are in place. And it's the table of contents. I didn't put like a whole thing in here, because I wanted to really speak to it more than, like actually showing you guys on the screen. But, the table of contents walks through like the executive summary, how to show this to your C-suite. What is a purple team? How to advocate for a purple team. It talks about goals and objectives, talks about methodology. What should your methodology look like? And then roles and responsibilities, where you hand out those roles and responsibilities to the members of the team. And like James said, too many cooks in the kitchen can sometimes ruin what you're cooking. And so who do you decide and prioritize to be a part of this engagement? And ideally, you're never going to have that same one person part of the engagement. You're going to rotate through the people inside of your organization so everyone has, quote, a turn. And, one of the things I think I'm going to mention later on is it's a great opportunity for more junior folks, including myself, to learn new techniques, to test an environment that is, considered more safe, because not only do you have, yourself and the red side, the blue side, but you also should have sysadmins so that if something happens to that system as you're testing, you can quickly address it and get that system back online. Ideally, before you do any type of purple team assessment like this, you're taking a back, oh my gosh, just blanked on the word, a snapshot of your environment so that if something does happen, you can revert to that snapshot. So yeah, that stuff should all be covered in these frameworks, and it is covered in this one. This one also talks in, approaches things from a cyber threat intelligence perspective. It's going to look at, the exercise itself, how to kick it off, how to work through the exercise flow, how to track everything inside of the exercise. It has like a really cool little executive summary, if you will. And then, it talks about lessons learned and how to retest for those detects once you make them, if you have to make them, how to test your methodology, how to test your processes and procedures to make sure things are getting appropriately addressed, and, rinse and repeat as you need to. So next slide. All right, so atomic methodology. I wouldn't be me if I didn't mention Kent and Jordan. Kent and Jordan did a fantastic iteration of this series 5 years ago. And so we, of course, peeked on it a little bit, and they have their own atomic purple team life cycle that they walk through. And they have, not only they have the planning phase, they have attack, how do you hunt and defend, harden, adjust, report, risk, assess, and, rinse and repeat, right? Go back all the way through that whole attack chain. So the atomic methodology is also really, really awesome. Again, they're all pretty much the same, right? They're just all different frameworks. They're named different things. But the whole goal behind the Atomic Purple Team lifecycle and framework is to, address business organizational concepts designed to assist your org to build, deploy, maintain, and, fix and justify having an attack, detect, defend information security exercise. Ken and Jordan have some thoughts behind Purple Team assessments. They are very passionate about those thoughts. They've also written a really awesome book. I have been trying to track it down, so hopefully I can track it down. It was a couple years ago, but the workflow that what I was able to find is posted on GitHub too. But the workflow takes its roots from like that continuous pen testing methodology and improvements and frameworks. For example, like ISO 27001, 27002, Six Sigma, etc. And it's supposed to balance that risk analysis with the rest of that cycle that you see in front of you. So James. Perfect.
Yes.
So I feel like we would be remiss not to mention the MITRE ATT&CK framework. So you have like your initial access, right? And this is just a snapshot. This does not include the full thing. If I tried to include the full thing, it wouldn't fit on the slide. But the MITRE ATT&CK framework is a great starting place. If you don't know where to start with something from here. So if you were, just an organization, you have somewhat maturity, you have your SOC that you're trying to test, someone from the SOC, you have everyone seated in a room, and you want to test something. So let's pick and choose something from here, like credential access, and we're going to go through, let's see, MFA interception. So we're doing some sort of, like phishing or vishing to get this MFA token from someone. And then how do we go from getting this MFA token, alerting on it, and escalating inside of environments? So that's going to be how someone gains access, right? So then how do they infiltrate the network afterwards? How do they pivot inside of the network afterwards? So you can go through the MITRE ATT&CK framework and choose different techniques from, initial access to privilege escalation to persistence. And then you can make a plan on like how to follow this workflow and then how to hunt through it. And ideally, you're going to be testing alerts that are already in place. You don't want to test something that doesn't, exist, right? So ideally, you're going to be picking this attack framework access techniques from something that's already existing, and then, work your way across left to right.
Okay.
Yeah, planning
Oh.
phase. Do you want to talk to us, or do you want me to go?
Yeah, I can say a few words.
Okay.
So the planning phase, when it comes to getting a purple team assessment off the ground, and you've got the go ahead, you're ready to go, or you're getting ready to go. There's some things that we need to take care of ahead of time before we just hit the execution date with any type of security assessment. So the first one we want to do is establish a clear goal. So what are we hoping to achieve during this purple team? Are we going to maybe test out a new EDR? Did we remediate something from a previous assessment that we want to make sure that's still fixed? Stuff like that. Um, Purple teams are great, but without having a clear defined goal or a clear target, it's hard to justify why you're doing them. Why are we spending the money on this? Why are we investing the time into this?
Mhm.
Additionally, you want to figure out exactly what your network topology looks like, your asset inventory, your login configurations, your systems in scope, and send that over and collaborate with the red side of red team on that to make sure they're testing the stuff that is actually, that's affected by that aligns with the goal that we've set previously. For example, like if we want to figure out, okay, we just patched a bunch of software on these systems, and here's the network map for these, and we don't want to it really wouldn't make a whole bunch of sense to have the red side of things try to fish your HR and break in that way. So, and then additionally, we need to figure out who from our blue team members is going to be involved in this assessment. Along, Ashley mentioned that previously, you know, ideally you're kind of rotating people in and out so everybody gets some good hands-on experience. Double check your monitoring and logging. It really does nobody any good if you're going into this assessment just assuming your logging works and you come to find out that it doesn't. That can be valuable, but it can also be a pretty big waste of time as well, when it could be something simple like, oh, here's our testing system and we expect alerts to fire for this host, but your SIM agent, log shipping agent isn't even installed on that host yet. So checking stuff like that is super important. And then, of course, review and improve the rules of engagement. We don't really want to stray out of scope or out of what this purple team is trying to accomplish. So,
Yeah, and one thing I did forget to put in here that I already mentioned but should mention again is that when you're in the planning phase, all of the systems that are considered to be in scope should have a snapshot taken, some sort of backup, whatever you want to call it, so that, again, if something happens to that system, you're able to easily restore it. So,
right. Yep. Yeah. Nobody likes a system failure that you can't. Nobody wants a wreck like that and then get on the bad side of the sysadmins. All right. So moving on to the purple team life cycle, and this is stolen from Kent and Jordan and the purple team life cycle that they've put together. And what's great about in that repo, there's a link there. There is a link to a sample reporting document. And what's great about this is you can use this document to really clearly break down and plan what you want to accomplish with this assessment. Um, who's in charge? Who's the belly button, so to speak, for the C-level? There's what log sources are we testing? What MITRE techniques and attack methodologies are we wanting to test? There's a few sections for, okay, what defense methodology are we using? How are we going about hunting? Are we assuming we have these logs, or are we assuming we're not using these log sources? There's sections for alert fidelity. How valuable is this alert? If this alert that we're testing fires, should this wake up 4 or 5 people at 2 a.m. on a Saturday? Or is it something that we should, next business day? And that type of stuff. And most importantly, in my mind, there is a change management section where you can clearly say, hey, here's what we did. Here's what we learned. As a result of what we learned, here's what we'd like to change, and here's how it will benefit the organization's security posture as a whole. And that is super valuable for managers and C-level executives to take this document that's about 1.2 pages long, clearly see what's going on, clearly see what the value is, and then be able to make a super informed decision like, all right, cool, let's do it. Let's go for it. This seems valuable. So, all righty. And then during
all
the
right.
engagement.
Yes. During the engagement. So, the first thing we're talking about is obviously collaborate. I feel like that is the theme of our whole slides is collaboration. You want your blue side, your red side, your devs, your system admins all talking together, asking questions, sharing insights. Hey, I did this. Did you see it? Yes, I saw it. Hey, I didn't see this. Can you do it again? Let's tweak something. Can I see it again? Things like that. You want to make sure that people are communicating, asking those questions of, I did, I ran, what are we going to say? I ran Bloodhound. Did you see it? Did I trip one of our, canary tokens while I was running it? You want to make sure that that stuff, or sorry, your honey account, did that honey account get tripped while I was doing Kerberos? Why didn't it get tripped? Is there a misspelling in the rule? Things like that. You want to make sure that that stuff is addressed. And sometimes you can fix it in real time, push it, and then test it again. You want to make sure you're documenting. So not only from a reporting standpoint, BHIS is a very big proponent of documenting over to almost to a point of like over documentation, because if it's not documented, how can you prove that it happened? But documenting not only the attack, but from the blue side, okay, it did generate alert, here's the alert, or it didn't generate alert. Let's go hunt for that alert. Let's go hunt for that system. Let's go see if we can even see the attacker's machine in the network and the traffic from that, and then ask those questions. Okay, why can't we see it? Or why didn't this alert work? Or are they doing something that's even going to generate alerts? There's so many times during pen tests where customers are like, I'm not really seeing anything. And it's like, okay, well, you put me in the same subnet as the rest of the machines that were in scope. So you're not going to see things unless I'm hitting a firewall or unless I'm hitting some type of alerting in place. So again, those questions, ideally, you should all be in the same room so that you can ask those questions together, or in some sort of like collaborative chat, like, are you in Slack or a phone call if you can't be in the same room. And so the timing can really make sure that this is an effective exercise and it's a good return on that investment in it. And you can create those detections and respond to, what is generated. And then ensuring that all of your participants are involved in the tuning and rule development, not only from like, you're going to say, hey, wait, why would the red team be involved in the rule development? Well, because we're going to retest it again. And so again, like I said before, really great opportunity to train junior folks on how to hunt for alerts, how to hunt for a machine or a ghost in your logs type of thing, how to conduct this type of attack. If you're teaching someone what it looks like from a blue team perspective, because they're a red team tester, it will train them to be more effective at maybe evasion techniques. So there's a bunch of different things that you can try during this test. It's not always about generating alerts. Maybe it's about how quiet can I be and can you still find me? So that's also a really good way to learn new techniques.
Okay, so an alert didn't fire. I strongly suspect we've all kind of been there. Imagine, you're a SOC and your customer is saying, "Hey, just so you know, we had a pen test and we expected a lot more alerts from the SOC. What's going on here?" So the first thing, of course, we're going to not do is panic, just because it's really not a good feeling when people say, "Hey, why didn't you do better? Why didn't you catch what was going on?" So, and typically there's a really good reason and as to why that happened. For example, perhaps, like I said, the the test machine was put in a different VLAN and logging wasn't deployed to that VLAN, and the test machine was able to run Rampage. And of course, we're not going to alert on anything because we didn't have logs to alert on. So when you're in this kind of situation, just kind of keep calm. Remember, this is exactly why we're doing this. We want to find gaps and holes in our logging and detections that we can easily plug. Maybe the issue is as simple as a typo in the rule, and it would have caught the log, and you can prove that it would have caught the alert, and you can prove that by fixing the typo, taking the rule query, pasting it into a search, and there's the activity. It's like, oh, okay, well, we would have caught this, but we didn't, so now we'll catch it in the future. That kind of thinking can really take you far in dealing with this kind of situation. So thinking about what was the log source for the alert, are we even getting those logs into our stack, into our SIM? Do we even have rules for those logs? Or are we just collecting logs to have logs? Did the attack actually generate the logs that our alert is looking for? That, sometimes there's an expectation like, okay, we've seen this attack over and over. We know it should look like this. Maybe this time it didn't look like that. And that can be a great, great opportunity to tune that alert and make it even more high fidelity than it previously was. If we didn't catch it, what logs did that generate? Can we get an actual export of the logs on the system, assuming we have logging, and just hunt and peck, see what comes out, see if we notice anything that looks suspicious and we know about the time frame. What are we actually seeing? Is there a good reason why we didn't catch the activity? And you get the idea. This is another great opportunity to be collaborating with the red side of things. Like, hey, it's been an hour. We know you did this. Can you kind of give us a few details as to what we should be looking for in our cluster to see if we have those logs? If not, could you maybe give us a few more details about what is your setup? What's going on? Help us help ourselves, so to speak. So where next time we have these assessments, we can be like, all right, yep, we expect this to fire. Attacker did this. It fired. Great. We caught him. Everybody's happy.
All right. After the engagement. So after any sort of engagement, right, you're going to finish up your documentation. Maybe in this case, you're going to pull logs from the machine itself to see why you didn't see a certain attack, pull logs from the attacker's machine, see what they actually did, see what it looks like in the logs. And then you're going to finish up your documentation and you're going to come together and you're going to talk about the exercise as a whole group. And you're going to put your brains together and hopefully have some reason to the madness, right? So asking for clarification on findings that maybe were identified by the red team, because it is still, after all, an engagement that happens. You're still going to have vulnerabilities that need to be fixed and addressed. And so asking for clarification on those things, asking how to mitigate vulnerabilities if you can't fix them, asking for ways to detect them if you don't have detections already in place, updating your rules and your response playbooks, and then testing those detects, afterwards, planning for remediation for those vulnerabilities, everything as far as tracking improvement metrics for detection and response times. And then, scheduling that follow-up assessment and incorporating it into regular red-blue exercises. So that's super helpful for after the engagement. Again, making sure that you're all collaborating together again, asking questions as you need to ask questions about the report, the findings, the detects, the logs from, not only the attacked machine, but the attacker's machine, so on and so forth. And again, most of these frameworks that we talked about earlier will cover how to not appropriately do it, but they'll have some ideas on how to cover it. They'll have some documentation templates if you don't have something in place already, and ways to, ask those questions. I think some of them even have example questions for you if you can't think of a proper way to word something. So.
All righty. So on to attack emulation. How do we actually do this, right? From the red team perspective, there are some great options for automating these kinds of assessments, tests. So you can see here on the left, we have Caldera and Atomic Red Team. Both of those can provide a great, great framework to just spin up. All right, every month, we're just gonna run these attacks and see what happens. And that is a great, really strong way to be constantly verifying your alerts, verifying your log sources. Are our alerts actually working? Sometimes the temptation is to create a high fidelity detect and you ship it, it goes through into prod, it gets enabled, good, great, and you never hear from it again. And you're kind of wondering, all right, is this rule actually working? And this is where you can figure out if that rule is actually working or not using an automation to just like regularly test, regularly check. Maybe 1 month you're Or maybe one assessment, you're going to do this particular MITRE technique, or maybe you're going to do these particular uh, set of rules that have to do with password spraying. So something along those lines to where you can kind of break it down and iteratively go through all of your rules and verify that they're actually working. One strong combination is CI/CD plus atomic red team. What is possible with this is you can set up CI/CD runners that will you can get so let me back up a little bit. Atomic Red Team works by ingesting a list of here's all the techniques we're going to try, and here's all the corresponding rules to those techniques. So with CI/CD, what you can do is combine that with Atomic Red Team and using code, iteratively go through all of the techniques and run those attacks and techniques and see what alerts fire. And that can be really powerful once that automation is set up because on every day or so and so or every so forth, maybe every quarter, you'll just get a report. All right, are these working? Are they not? Great. Let's fix something or make some new rules. And then with manual testing, this kind of comes into where you're really looking more at in my mind, it's more of creating a new rule, a new detect. Say there's a new CVE dropped, right? And it's all the super critical. There's exploits out there for it. This is where you're gonna go ahead and like, all right, we're gonna manually test this. We're gonna use some of the more traditional pen testing tools to go about this, generate some logs, see what happens. And go from there. See what we want to capture exactly what that new activity would look like in our environment and see if we can create detections from there to throw over into our automation and include those in our automation so that we're continuously testing for those as well. The process can be a little bit more labor intensive and it does kind of require a deeper understanding of the adversaries' techniques. And that can include full stack emulation from initial recon to data exfiltration. And it's really it's more of a thorough examination of the defensive capabilities of the organization. Whereas compared to automated attack emulation, this is more of an ongoing, let's make sure our tools our alerts rather are actually working and we can kind of have some sleep better at night knowing that our alerts are still firing for malicious activity. All right. Everybody's favorite topic, executive buy-in. How do we convince our managers that how do we convince our managers to actually let us do this? These are just put yourself in the C-level shoes, right? And these are some questions that you might see, like, because you have to, as if you're a C-level, you have to worry about a whole lot more than just the IT department. So you want to be thinking about like, how is IT spending our budget? They're already spending a lot of money, where's so-called critical CVEs released, but what does that even mean? Can we even exploit these? There's tension between the blue and red teams. They're always competing instead of collaborating. Blue says red always wins. And it's honestly not hard to see why blue would say that. And it kind of just boils down to like, what is going on? Why are we doing this? Can somebody please just show me something real? And this is where those purple team frameworks we mentioned earlier can really come into play, where it can help you really document exactly what you're going for and exactly what you are wanting to achieve with this assessment. Because if you go into your C-level's office and be like, hey, I want to spend $30,000 to make sure our security is great. And the C-level is going to be like, but we already spend this amount of money on security products, and this is like the first I've heard from you this quarter. Like, can you give me a little more than that? Right. So what really is helpful to get executive buy-in is when you come prepared with kind of like an executive summary, 1 page, 1.5 pages of what we're planning to do. Here's what we expect to learn, or here's what we did already. Here's why we would like more funding to pursue this avenue, because this is really valuable to the org and can really strengthen our security posture overall. And C-levels are going to love that because, hey, stronger security means maybe we don't have to pay $1 million ransom malware. You get the idea, right?
Yeah.
So, yep,
There's a really good question in chat, James,
sure.
that I feel like we should address right now.
Hmm.
So it's from Gray. He says, how do you define a successful purple team assessment and what metrics do you use to measure its impact? Which I think probably a question that C-level executive would say.
Yeah.
And success is in the eye of the beholder. I
Hmm.
feel like what I can say, and what does that actually mean, right? Um,
Yeah.
Successful tests are tests that find something of value. So what do you consider to be value to your organization? That's a question that you can only answer yourself. I can't answer it for you. And in my opinion, though, when I'm looking at a assessment that I have done and in purple team assessments that I have done, success is we did something and it didn't generate an alert. We figured out why it didn't generate an alert. We were able to fix it on the fly, communicate effectively throughout the teams, collaborate effectively. No one wanted to punch anyone in the process. And you were able to retest that alert and it generated something for the blue side to see. So that, in my opinion, is success. And metrics that can be used and metrics that we have used in the past with CI/CD pipelines and Atomic Red Team is how many alerts do you have in your cluster, right? How many alerts do you guys see every single day? What alerts are you testing with Atomic Red Team? What alerts are you testing with your manual testing? So once you get that number hammered down and you're going, okay, these are the alerts that we tested. These are alerts that fired and didn't fire. Then we fixed this number of alerts. How does this compare overall at the end of your assessment? So say, for example, you have 300 alerts, right? In your cluster, and your Atomic Red Team implementation is only testing about maybe 110 of them, which is not outside the realm of normal. Every single automation tool is not going to be perfect, and it's not going to be a one-to-one solution for your environment. That's going to have to be custom made if you want it to be one-to-one. But I digress. So you're going to be measuring the not only the metric of how many alerts you're able to test, but then how many alerts actually fired. And then you're going to go investigate why those alerts didn't fire and see, okay, there was a typo in this one alert. You're going to then run your CI/CD pipeline again. And then you're going to say, okay, I see all of these alerts fired. We're set to go. So that, in my opinion, is a successful purpose team assessment, whether it's automated or manual, and so forth.
Yeah,
One other
100%.
thing I wanted to mention too, sorry, James, totally
No, you're
just
fine.
cut you off. Going back to the executive buy-in thing, you don't want, and this is something that I always say to customers, you don't want to wait until that unfortunate event actually happens, where you have an attacker in your network and you didn't see it, or, God forbid, you have a pen test coming up. Your pen tester gets in the environment day 2, they're saying, hey, I'm seeing compromise in your network. And you're like, what? Hold on phone. How do you see compromise in my network? And what we're not seeing that is an unfortunate start to a purple team exercise, in my opinion, and an IR engagement. You want to get ahead of that. And so sometimes you kind of have to lay on the drama thick for your executive C-suites and say, what does it look like if we have a cybersecurity incident? How much money does that cost? How much money does it cost for all of the data that we hold inside of our databases to be breached? What is that value? Okay, and then you're going to compare it to how much a purple team assessment costs. And you're going to say, look, this is what a purple team assessment costs. This is how much data we're holding. This is what this data is worth monetarily. Is it financially feasible for us to say we want to test this and test these techniques before an actual incident happens? And then we have to pay out for IR, we have to pay out to are we getting ransomed for this data? Are we having to deal with like a class action lawsuit, so on and so forth. Kind of saying to them, it's worth our time to invest in this instead of investing in IR after the fact. So I don't want to be dramatic there, but sometimes a little bit of scaring can get you a little bit farther with saying, my data is worth this amount of money, and we should protect that data and invest in protecting that data rather than fixing our goof up after. So.
Well, seems like a perfect time to move on to questions since I'm kind of
Yeah, we've
already.
got 15 minutes
Yeah.
left. We threw in a bunch of references here for you guys. We threw in a reference to the previous webcast on Atomic Purple Team Framework and Lifecycle done by Kent and Jordan, who are wonderful human beings. SANS has a really, really amazing blog source that we used to learn more about like different attack automations, different lab environments that you can spin up and run inside of your organization if you want to do it, quote, cheaply. And then, we have resources for Atomic Purple Team. We have resources for writing your own DTECs. So, hopefully it covers everything 360. But what questions are there? Any? Let me see. I tried to pay attention. We don't need pen testing. We have Sentinel-1. Yeah. Can you share an example of how a Purple Team exercise provided tangible evidence that swayed executive buy-in? So I feel like I'm kind of kicking myself in the mouth here a little bit by saying this. And this whole webinar was done from the perspective of we don't do enough Purple Team assessments. We don't see enough props out for Purple Team assessments. But what I have seen in the past, and one of my first jobs straight out of college, I was doing vulnerability management at an internal firm, and we hired this third-party firm to come in. They brought in their own lab environment, and they had this awesome Purple Team exercise where they had like an incident commander who came in, ran the incident. We had blue, we had red. I was a junior pen tester at that point, no idea what I was doing. And so I'm sitting in this room with this incident commander. We're running stuff. We have like little groups. Everyone is there. We have like one red person, one blue person, and then like a system admin all sitting at one table. And then, kind of like rinse, repeat throughout the room. And I learned a ton from that engagement, but that was also motivation for this webinar. So going back to the question, how can I, provide tangible evidence that swayed executive buy-in? So there was an incident where we were running CI/CD and Atomic Red Team. It was doing its thing. It showed we had really, really great results from automated testing. And that was done in a lab environment. So, it was a controlled lab environment, and we were, again, seeing all of our alerts were generating correctly in the cluster. And then, everything was firing beautifully. And then I came in and did a little mini assessment, adversary emulation test. And one of the tests that I did was curb roasting. And we have, honey, or this person had honey accounts inside of their network that should have been triggered when I did curb roasting, but they weren't. And so they're like, oh, we saw you curb roasting. I'm like, okay, great. But then they were like scratching their head and they're like, but we didn't see that it triggered our honey account. And so through digging through that, and we already mentioned this in the webinar a couple times, but through digging through the rule, we discovered there was a misspelling in the alert. And that misspelling is the reason why half of that alert didn't trigger. And so when you're going back to your executive and you're saying, all right, so we did this test, we ran this thing, this is why it didn't alert the first time. We're able to fix this misspelling, and now we can see when curb roasting happens in our environment. One of the things that is really important when you're talking about this attack path is you're not only providing that evidence of what happened leading up to the incident, but you're also providing evidence of where can an attacker go from that perspective. If there was no alerting in place, you're going to say, okay, well, we saw curb roasting, but we didn't see curb roasting against this account that is intentionally vulnerable to catch that curb roasting activity. How can they go from curb roasting to then escalating privileges in your environment and potentially, causing even more havoc? And so that is going to be like how holistically you roundabout way saying, this is why that alert is so important, is catching this attack early on in the attack path before things get hairy type of thing. That's how I personally would provide that tangible evidence. I don't know, James, do you have anything to add on to that?
No, you pretty much mentioned exactly what I was gonna say in terms of here's something that we expected to catch, we didn't catch it. We found out why we didn't catch it, we fixed it, went back and said, here's why we do this. And everybody was happy.
Yeah. So static tear tier asks, do you all have a framework recommendation for documenting the process from why you picked that specific TTP, what you did, including the outcome, what objective it succeeded in meeting, and the way you have history of what has been done to show work and value over time? So I think what James had showed earlier would help a little bit. Maybe, hold on, I can bring up the link, maybe. Or if you want to bring up the link.
Yeah, let's see here. Stand by.
Well done, friends. You did great.
Oh, thanks, Deb.
And you're so good at answering the questions on the fly. I don't even know if you need me here, but I have a couple that I see that we can ask.
Yeah, that I missed. That's fine.
I don't know how you did. You did great.
I grabbed it if you don't have it, James.
Yeah, I'm spinning my wheels over here.
Okay. Hold on, let me share my screen then. Why doesn't it show me? Well, this is strange. I just wanna show you this one thing. See, this is fun when you are trying to share something live.
Yeah,
All
hang
right,
on. I think we're
gonna.
all right. You got it?
Oh, you want it? No, you can do it because
Oh,
it's
okay.
not showing me a preview of one I want to share, and that's making me nervous.
Oh, now I need to figure out how to.
Please don't make us burn down the entire webcast.
I know
that's what my fear is
That
as
has
well.
happened.
Let's see.
I would rather
Oh,
not do
Yeah,
that.
no, thank you. No pressure, James.
No,
No
no, no.
pressure.
It's all good. It's all good. We're okay. Over here. That's not what I wanted, but that's okay. Arg.
Do you want another question while we're waiting on James?
Yes, well, someone actually put in, I guess DETT and CT, detect, I guess, maybe, I don't know. Some people name their words like their tools something really strange, and then I'm sitting here scratching my head. I'm like, how do you pronounce that? Or do I even want to attempt to pronounce it and then offend someone, and so on and so forth?
No, that wouldn't happen.
What?
That wouldn't happen. You wouldn't offend anyone. No one gets
Never.
offended on the internet.
Yeah, no one. I once had a conversation with someone about how to pronounce Azure for like 15 minutes. But this detect resource looks pretty cool. They've got a whole blog written on it. It looks like it maps one-to-one with like gaps that align to your industry and threat actor profiles. Something else that your stock, if you have a stock, should be doing already is sending you a threat profile that aligns to your industry and, like what threat actors are doing right now and, what their flavor of choice is for the day. So as those things change, obviously your threat profile is going to look different and what gaps align to your industry is going to look different. But really cool tool, it looks like. I haven't really dove deep into it, but in my mind, what looks or should be a framework is something that looks like the Atomic Purple Team life cycle, and then you have this as like the executive summary, right, page, and then your second page, you're going to have your findings, everything that was identified from the red team, and then you're going to work through that methodology, which tells the story of the attack chain, it tells the story of the blue side of things, and then it also tells you what was detected, what wasn't detected, and then the investigation into why it wasn't detected, what needed to be fixed, or if it was an action item that exists after the exercise and something that you need to investigate further or write a custom detect for it. So that's in my mind what something should look like. Nothing is going to be perfect that's out there, unfortunately.
Unfortunately. Yeah, good teamwork, like on the fly. Well done. You showed purple teaming live. You guys working together.
Oh, look at that. We figured it out. How to
Yeah, but yeah, this is the full template executive summary report that we mentioned earlier, and this is from Kenton Jordan's Atomic Purple Teaming. But this, you can see there's some really great, it's got everything a C-level would want to see, right? Who's in charge? What are we doing? Attack, what are we attacking with? What are we defending with? Or what's our defense methodology? Here's some changes that we might need to make. Here's all the change management things that we want to change. Here's why it'll make it better. And then here's everything we learned from the assessment. So really kind of like, as you can see, like this template is less than a page long. So it's kind of a
Right.
quick, easy read for an executive. Like, all right, cool. Looks good. Sign the dotted line. Let's go.
Right. And ideally, this isn't going to be your entire report. This is going to be
Right,
something that's
right.
in oh my gosh, companionship, whatever you want to call it, words. This is going to be aligned next to the report itself, where that is going to be more verbose and talk about the details of the attack and the alerts and what happened. But moving, someone else asked a really great question. How do you balance the need for thorough documentation with the fast-paced nature of a purple team engagement when troubleshooting alerts? You slow down, plain and simple. You tell your
Yep.
red team, hey, brakes on. We need to slow down. We need to document. We need to take screenshots. We need to do some research. You need to slow your roll, go take lunch, go get a coffee break, whatever. Just communicate.
Yeah.
There's never going to be a perfect solution. There's never going to be something that is a one size fits all again for every single organization.
Right.
There are some tips and tricks that you can do for one side of the coin, obviously, like I said, grabbing a snapshot of the machine afterwards with something like maybe like Velociraptor, right? This will tell us logs. It'll give a more in depth if you want to take a look at things after the exercise itself. Grabbing logs and, PowerShell, the bash commands that were ran from the terminal, from the red person's machine, getting that history will also help. There are some ways that you can customize your bash environment to log the time that every single command was ran so that you can generate like a spreadsheet afterwards of every single time you ran a command, what time it was ran at, and then you can make like another column, for example, for the blue side of things, and you're going to say, yes, I did see this, or no, I didn't see this. And so, balancing the need, it's always going to be a balance, but feel free and do tell your red team person, your tester, whoever it is, to stop if you need to catch up.
Great answer. Yeah, slow down.
Yep.
Slow down,
Perfect.
pump the brakes.
Yeah.
This is not the time to show off.
No.
Slides are available, Neo. They're either in the slide resource channel or in Zoom.
We have a couple minutes left for questions. So if we didn't get to your question, go ahead and flap
I'm
it
still
again.
scrolling.
You're still scrolling, but if
Yeah.
we didn't get to it and we just blew through it just because of the nature of the chat, go ahead and put it in there again.
Repost. Yeah.
Repost would be great.
How do you recommend organizations with limited budgets set up a lab environment for purple team exercises? So limited budget. Oh man.
How
Well.
limited are we talking?
Yeah, how limited are we talking? I guess if it's super limited and you're like a one-man show type of thing and you're testing your MSSP, that's going to be really, really hard. You're going to have to reach out to your MSSP to see what kind of services they offer. And you're going to have to do some research to see what alerts they actually have already and are, like alerting on, right? But if you have like an actual active stock and you have the ability, whether it's hosted internally or you have a third party stock, again, I would reach out to them and say, hey, I'm interested in a purple team assessment. I have done vulnerability management. I have had an internal pen test. I have had other types of engagements where someone came in and they had access to a workstation and they were like, you guys are very mature. We want to do a purple team assessment. And so you've already done all your legwork, you've fixed vulnerabilities, and now you're like, okay, I want to do testing from that standpoint. You could probably just, pick and choose and set things up and do it yourself. It's not that hard if you know what you're doing. I know that is a double-edged sword there, but we have a lot of blogs on how to do certain attack techniques and setting up, oh wait, I think I just reread this wrong. But anyway, setting up, the attack path from start to finish should be relatively easy if you want to do it by yourself. But setting up an actual lab environment, are you asking it from a perspective of setting up a lab environment so that you're not testing on prod servers? Maybe.
Maybe yes.
Yes, he says. Okay. Never mind. Totally different question. I'm sorry about that. James, do you have an answer for this one?
For setting up like a quick,
lab
easy
environment so
internal
they're
lab.
not.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Like it really depends on like how limited budget are we talking here, but I would start asking questions like, okay, so what does our logging deployments look like? What are we seeing already? Are we going to be making any changes in the future that we want to like, are we going to move to a different logging scheme or do we want to change that? So and honestly, like what kind of shop is it? Is it internal AD or is it cloud only? So many questions there. Is your hardware on-prem or is it in the cloud? One, you know, simple solution could be is head on eBay, find a older Dell server, uh, spin up some Proxmox VMs and go to town. Like, I mean, that's more of a time investment than a money investment, really. Um, but really, there's just so many variables that it's kind of hard to, um, man, I don't like this answer because there's so many unknowns.
Right.
Uh,
But
there's a good question. Maybe it's a good one to end on, and we'll do
Okay.
final thoughts. It's in Zoom. What's one purple team problem you wish you could fix across the industry? Just-
My answer may be different than James. And it's something that I talked about earlier, and it comes from my days of working internal red team, and it's bridging that gap and that divide that exists between purple or blue and red and the software engineers who are going to go fix the vulnerabilities and the developers and system analysts that are out there trying to make it so that everyone doesn't hate each other. because we're all in this together, right? And that is the biggest problem that I see with all of these engagements. And when you go in and you're fixing the vulnerabilities, or I'm delivering a report to a customer, they're just like, ugh, this is going to be a headache trying to work with so and so to try and fix this particular issue. No one wants to hear that their baby is ugly, type of thing. And it's really hard to take that, knowing that feedback is good and it can be delivered in a way that is not condescending. So sometimes it's how do we bridge that gap in a way that teaches not only the person receiving the feedback, but the person giving the feedback, how to do it in a way that is not so offensive.
Yeah, it's a great
But
answer.
even still, I don't know. It's always going to be a problem. I feel like that is never going to be something that's fixed, because that human element is always going to be very volatile.
Yeah.
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 James, do you
Yep.
have
I would 100% agree. I saw a question that said, like, how do you, like, kind of along the same lines, like, how do you kind of approach the thought that the red team always wins and the blue team
I saw that.
is always lacking? And kind of part of that to remember as well, like, well, the red team doesn't always win. There are some environments that where you're in the internal networks, like, wow, I got nothing, can't do anything. Great job, had gold star for you. And but at the same time, it really is a struggle when there's this perception of, like, the red team wants to show off their skills, so to speak, and the blue team has this attitude of, like, well, that's not what would happen in a real life scenario. Like, we would have locked down your computer and wiped it and imaged it on the first detection, so everything after this is no longer valid. And just kind of getting rid of that attitude that we're like red versus blue, not red with blue.
yeah, check your attitude at the door,
Exactly.
guys.
Yep.
The end goal is improving security, whether
Yep.
that be fixing things, fixing rules, enhancing rules, or finding vulnerabilities. We're all hoping to do the same thing at the end of the day. Ooh, this is cool. Feedback sandwich.
Yes.
Totally gonna click on this link.
Better you than me.
Yes.
Uh,
This is cool. Oh yeah, the compliment sandwich, where you give a
compliment sandwich,
compliment,
yep.
then you say, you could do this way, and that would be better because blah, and then you end it with another compliment. Yeah.
Like, really nice glasses, Ashley. That purple looks fantastic on you. Something like that.
But what's the but, Deb?
That was the end. That was the top part. Or the bottom,
you just
that's the top part.
Ashley
there's
doesn't get a whole
there's
sandwich.
no
She just gets a slice of bread.
Where's the meat, Deb?
There's no meat. It's just fluff. It's just fluff. On that note, let's do final thoughts. Ashley, if you could sum up the last hour and 7 minutes with
so the last hour and 7 minutes, I would say that, like, nothing is perfect. No one is perfect. We're not perfect. We did this because we want to see more purple team assessments done and completed. Wade would have made a fantastic addition to this. We've talked about purple team assessments with Wade before, and he has so many thoughts. But I take everything that we said with a grain of salt, right? Everything that we said is in a perfect world where everyone is aligned and they all have the same end goal of making sure that your systems are perfectly secure and your alerts are generating perfectly, and that's just not realistic. And so you're going to have to take, bits and pieces of what we recommended and what we said and tailor it to your environment. Purple team assessments can be done successfully, but it's never going to be foolproof. So,
James, how about you, buddy?
Oh man, ditto. Not sure what else to add to that.
That's fine. That'll work. That'll work. And with that, we're gonna wrap it up. Thank you guys so much. We know that there's just a ton of stuff that you could consume between the hours of 1 and 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we just are so grateful that you decide to show up here and hang out with us and laugh with us and learn with us. We do not take it for granted, and we'll see you next week, next Thursday. And that's it, Ryan. I think you know what to do, right? You know to kill it.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
There it is.
Kill it. Kill it,
There.
fire. Kill it. Kill it, Ryan. Oh,
Bye-bye.
one job, man. Kill it.
Maybe.
Recording stopped.
There we go.
Yay, Ryan.
Oh, Fletch is still here. Shit.
You said shit.
And he's not asleep either.
Good thing we're not
Well, I'm
live
still
anymore.
working on badge stuff.
Bad
I
stuff.
know. I'm sitting down. I'm tired.
You guys did so good. Well
Did
done.
we?
I don't have any meat in the middle to give